Board of County Commissioners meeting to order.
We need a microphone on the speakerphone.
Okay, we'll have to let the record show today is June 17th, 2020, and the time is 9 o'clock a.m. It won't come on. We're working on some technology issues for those who are listening in, so if you would, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and good morning. Madam Clerk to the Board, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Flower.
Present.
Commissioner Kanda.
Here.
Commissioner Prince.
Here.
Attorney Clint Smith.
Present.
And Clerk to the Board Kelly Kemper present.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. Audience introductions. If you are on the phone, now would be an appropriate time to introduce yourself, please.
Lake Jackson, Wet Mountain Tribune.
Thank you. Go ahead and introduce yourselves, please.
Cindy Flower, ETR Coordinator.
Are there only two on the phone this morning? Okay, thank you. Welcome, good morning. Appreciate that. Carol, would you send Vern an email and ask him to let you know how many people are on the call?
Yes.
Thank you. Any amendments to the agenda this morning, gentlemen?
None from me.
No, sir.
Nor do I. Approval of the minutes. I would move that we approve the following minutes submitted by the clerk. April 27th. Sorry, let me finish my motion. The following minutes: April 27th, April 30th, May 4th, May 5th, and May 20th.
I'll second.
Thank you, sir. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Discussion.
Kelly, they were really good, and I'm not going to let you resign.
It's the wrong board.
I know. I'm just making a statement ahead of time.
Yeah, thanks for your work, Kel. Appreciate it. We're making headway, aren't we?
We are.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye. Commissioner Prince.
Aye.
Candace, sorry. Commissioner Prince.
Aye.
And Commissioner Fowler votes aye. Motion carries. Those minutes have been adopted or approved as presented. Commissioner items. Commissioner Prince, would you like to begin?
Sure, thank you. It's not been that long, but it's been very, very busy. On the 4th, of course, we had the Board of Health meeting. On the 8th, we had a workshop. On the 9th, I attended a tourism meeting, and also that day I attended the Office of Emergency Management meeting. On the 10th, we had a meeting regarding the 6 Tower project. We actually had several of those meetings, and that was the main one. On the 12th, I attended the SCED Economic Development meeting with the new director of the SCED board.
Where was that at?
That was at the tourism,
Here?
the chamber building.
Oh,
it was here.
Here in town, okay.
The director came up, and it was just Dale, Charles, and I, and the new director. And we were really just catching up to speed on what the project was and where we were. As you all know, we have 5 letters of commitment for the 6 tower locations, so that seems to be moving along fairly well, better than I expected, to be truthful. I thought that was going to be difficult, and it may be very difficult. I'm glad we hired a professional to help with those sites. And then on the 16th, of course, that was yesterday, we attended the OEM meeting and the task force meeting, and I've had hundreds of conversations about an item that was removed from the agenda about special use permit, and other than that, just doing my thing that I'm elected to do.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
Commissioner Kanda?
Yep, got a lot of things that happened since, are we doing this since our last
Yeah.
board meeting? Right?
Yeah,
So there
yeah.
was the Board of Health, all the same similar meetings. But I want to highlight a couple things that you two need to know about. Of course, we did have that DOLA meeting on the cash disbursements, and that was very good, I thought. I wish it was more. And then we had a good, well, that was a very lengthy meeting, as a matter of fact. A couple Board of Health meetings, policy meetings, task force meetings. The important thing, I think, on the task force is, I think they're making some progress on grants. I think is good, that kind of thing. I would like, and we mentioned this in the last meeting, get them involved more with the people that are out there in the businesses to help understand if there's any other issues that we're not getting word of. And I think they have the legs to do that, or get some volunteers to do it more, to look forward. Found out that gambling's open in what is it, Cripple Creek. Also found it interesting that the 4th of July parade's going on in both Salida and Buena Vista. You go ahead.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to say that, you know, we all agreed that we were
Sure.
looking forward to a 4th of July
Right.
parade here. It was the two ladies chose
That's right.
to withdraw that.
But then the fiber program, go back to the task force, and I think there's good progress because of where the towers are being located, and it's going to be synergistic with the fiber program. That's the important thing. And I had a lengthy meeting with CenturyLink and with the Mark Carmel and his group on them what that means and what it does for the last mile. CenturyLink's taken that on, which is a good thing. So our county's going to be very well covered, and it makes us very well positioned for the grants on the second tranche of the Ready Grant that is available to the program. Airport, AWAS, executed that. We made our first draw of $12,000, a little over that, to reimburse us for the engineering that's going on with Armstrong Engineering. And then we had to report, because this is a year-end, monetary year-end for the state. They wanted to get obligations, and we have $5,000 that we're expecting to be billed by the end of this month. That had to be entered, and I got that password on. And let's see.
Can
Go
I ask a
ahead.
question about the AWOC system? When is it anticipated to be live, and what is the total cost? I don't remember. I know
Total
you've done-
cost, the grant that we got was $22,000 roughly.
Thank you.
And then they found out, as I mentioned before, that because the cost of increases, we were $50,000 short. That the state was. So they wanted to figure out how to fund it because it was that important. And that's why we had discussions on what we could do to match the $50K, because they're trying to spread what little money they have left over to cover other things. And we were lucky enough to receive the additional money, and with some extra help from the guys at the airport to do work on burying trenches, covering them up.
Okay, so
Thank
there's 4 but now there's only 2. Okay.
And then other than that, the other meetings that we've talked about have been going on.
Okay,
And
sounds good.
a lot of activity, good things.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Had a question I wanted to ask you, now it escaped me, but. Oh, the 12,000, is that reimbursement coming to the county, or?
Yeah,
Oh, nice.
it
Out of the grant money?
the way it works. Yeah, can you hear me? Check, lost it.
Yeah, that's all right.
Anyway, there it goes. The way it works
is you have to spend it and apply for the reimbursement.
Okay.
We ought to ask Vern to change his microphone.
Yeah.
Well, he put new batteries in this morning.
Did he? And what happens, we can do it as long as it's close together. But you're supposed to spend county money first, and we get reimbursement.
Right, okay.
Except for 10%, and that's figured in the formula, and that was we accounted for in our budgeting, so that's all covered. Except for this additional $50K, which we are doing by labor.
Right.
Okay, all right, thank you, sir, appreciate it. Okay, I'll go through my calendar, and I've got some other things I want to bring up as well. Since our last meeting, obviously, you gentlemen have alluded to it, attended the Board of Health meeting. Then we had a workshop on June 8th for the Coronavirus Relief Funding Program. June 9th, attended the Economic Recovery Task Force meeting. The 10th, the Custer County site selection services meeting. I also drafted a collaborative agreement for the DOLA managed Corona Relief funding program. June 10th, excuse me, I attended the Upper Arkansas Water Conservancy District meeting on Zoom. The 12th met with elected officials and supervisors in this room for a discussion on further opening the county building. Had a Board of Health meeting that day as well. Sorry. And just our standard weekly meetings via teleconference, so had those as well. So that's my calendar. I wanted to bring up some things that obviously aren't on the agenda. As you're aware of, I did remove the agenda item concerning the Three Peaks Ranch special use permit, and that was by a request from the Planning Commission. They formally withdrew their recommendation of approval of that SUP and then requested that that be taken off of the agenda. So we did that yesterday prior to the 24-hour posting.
Quick question. They're going to reconsider. Is that what?
I'm assuming
because
that's the deal. Yeah.
We'll just stay tuned, right?
They're going to be talking about it on their July 6th
Right.
meeting.
Yeah, their next scheduled meeting is July 6th. So, gosh. So Meredith
They're
is
asking
trying
you
to
to
call
speak
me
up
because-
somewhere.
No, I called Meredith to get a number, and now she's calling me back. So, I
I
would
think the
just,
first item on the agenda says, please silence those cell phones.
I'm trying, but there, I shut it off. How's that?
There's a button.
Yeah. Would you let Meredith know I'm okay? We're good. Actually, we needed the code for
Search and
search and rescue.
Okay.
And then also, just wanted to bring up, we had talked about, and one of the recommendations was to clean the bathrooms on a daily schedule since we are further opening the county building. I'm gonna just say we've opened the county building with some restrictions. How's that? So I don't know, I've spoken to our custodian. She is not available to come in during the day. The suggestion was we clean those bathrooms every 2 hours, which would be 10, 12, and 2 p.m. Pretty tough to find somebody to come in and sit here all day to clean the bathroom. Take about 20, 25 minutes to clean those bathrooms. I met with our custodian yesterday, and she said she had been in with Kelly, and Kelly suggested maybe we try to find a high school student that might be willing to come in and make a little extra summer money, which I thought was a great conversation, or a great suggestion. Thank you, Kelly. So I will pursue that a little bit if you gentlemen are in agreement. I don't think it's right to ask somebody, a county employee, to come out of their office, clean those bathrooms, so I'd like to move forward with that if you guys don't mind. And then I wanted to let you know that the fixtures, all the light fixtures came in today for the conversion of our current lighting to LEDs. So Ivan is working on that, getting the inventory put together and deciding what fixtures are designed to go in what offices and what buildings. So I did get all the letters of approval from Black Hills Energy for the county building, search and rescue, the annex, and I think public health were the four. So, and then I reached out to a local contractor and asked if he would be interested in submitting a bid for a sprinkler system for the county building. I got that back, so at some point if we want to put that on the agenda and talk about that, we can.
Evidently, that means it was more than $5,000, is that right?
It was more than $5,000.
I didn't get to read them.
Yeah. I didn't send that out, I just got it yesterday, right at the close of business, so I will forward that to you, and if you feel like we want to put that on an agenda and take action on moving forward with the project, I'm okay with that, but it's certainly more than the $5,000 limit, yes, sir.
Can I suggest, since we're just in the beginning of the summer months, that we go ahead and put it on the June 29th agenda and just have a discussion if we're going to do it? Doesn't make sense to me to do it in November,
Right,
December.
Right, sure. Yeah, I think that's fine, I don't have a problem with that. Kelly, if you'd make a note of that, please. I don't know of any other local landscape contractors that would be interested, but if that's what we want to do, if that's what we decide, then we can move forward with that, so. Too close? Okay, sorry.
If it's over 5,000, I think we will have to put it out for bid.
Well, yeah, I looked the language up, it is, that's right, it's over 5,000 unless there are circumstances such as only one resource available in the county, a local resource. If there's only one, we don't have to put it out for bid. There was one other circumstance where we wouldn't. There is language in there unless we want to give preference to a local resource as well, I believe, but I'll have to check on that. So there's a little bit of wiggle room, but I didn't feel comfortable moving forward with it.
I think there's a couple guys up here, but I'm unless they're gone. But
Yeah, I'm just
Check.
aware of one, so if we want to formally put that out for bids, we can. If we want to say, hey, you know what, we'll just continue to water it by hand, we can. I mean, we'll just have to have that conversation, so. And I think that's all I have. So we'll move on. Upper Ark Water Report. I did attend that meeting. Kind of standard business. They did re-elect the officers for the enterprise, water enterprise. They were the same, so there was no change in their leadership there. And then I had a conversation the other day with a rancher here in the valley who requested that we draft a letter and send it to Judge Schwartz, just either informing him or reminding him that the way the augmentation plan is written, it has a great potential to subvert and undermine our local or county planning and zoning regulations that are in place. So I may draft something up and then come back to the commissioners with it.
Can I defer to counsel since this is an active lawsuit? I suspect a letter to the judge would just be thrown out or stuck in a file. He'd never read it. I think someone would need to take some different legal action. Clint, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. I know Judge Schwartz, I've known him for many years. He is not going to consider anything from somebody who's not a party to the case.
So say that again. What's something I haven't seen it.
Well, the general idea is that if the augmentation plan is approved by Judge Schwartz, it's going to open up the potential for people to circumvent really the regulations of planning and zoning. In other words, using more water than what that area was zoned for.
It doesn't have to go back to planning and zoning.
No.
I would think it would.
No, it would be a law that they can buy augmented water
I
and
understand
use
that.
more water. Let's assume I live over in the East Hills in a 1 acre subdivision. And so, in most of those subdivisions, they're limited to in-house only. And that was a guideline set up in 1974 when they put the planning and zoning regs in place to say, okay, then you use X amount of gallons of water for your property. Now, if the augmentation plan is approved, then those people can buy additional augmented water. The water will be put into Grape Creek, but it will allow them to pump another 10,000 or a tenth of an acre foot a year, which is really in conflict of what the planning and zoning regs were written for.
Okay, yeah, I think we do need a discussion about that because, zoning still is zoning and you can't irrigate more than what the zoning was allowing. It didn't have anything to do with water then. It was
But I believe, and I'll defer against
So we have to
council if Clint wanted to chime in, I believe the judge's order would usurp
Yeah,
our planning and zoning regulations.
yeah.
And that's the item that we're talking about.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. See, they would be able to then irrigate outdoors, irrigate outside of our zoning regs. Because I agree, I think that augmentation plan will usurp anything that we have going on for our zoning regs currently. So that was a concern that a rancher brought up, and I told him I would bring it up at the meeting. Other than that, that's all I have to report for Upper Ark. Attorney items?
I worked with Jackie Hobby and Vic Barnes concerning the item that had been on the agenda. The Planning Commission had initially made a recommendation that was going to be considered today, but there were some subsequent events that occurred, and they wanted to postpone today's consideration of that, and I told them that they had the right to do that. Just notify you so you could take it off the agenda, which they did. I've worked with Jackie Hobby on some other planning and zoning issues, violations, including one where an attorney from Denver has gotten involved now. There was a letter from her, and I responded to that, and we're working on that one. That's property out in Deweese. And then I had a long telephone conversation with Sam DiNardo, the auditor for Custer County, about the hospital, the ambulance service issue for Eastern Custer County. And I'll discuss that and report on that during the executive session that we had scheduled for later. And that's pretty much what I've been doing.
All right, sir, thank you, appreciate it. I wonder, well, I guess we're right there on the agenda, aren't we? It's the next item on the agenda. I would certainly defer to our administrative assistant for any items that she may have.
I'm good.
You're good. Love it. All right.
Tuesdays she might say I'm bad.
That's
That would be
right,
bad.
that's right.
That'll perk our interest.
All right, we'll move on. Public comment. According to Vern, we have 2 people on the phone, so any public comment come before the group? Hearing none, we'll move on. Unfinished business, gentlemen?
I have none, sir.
Neither do I.
Nor do I. I failed to mention, and I'll do it just quickly, that Lynn Legree sent out the agenda for the airport board, and I see they're back to their 10 o'clock morning meeting and not their 5:30 evening. So their experiment must not have turned out too well. So they're going back to a morning meeting down at the airport.
That's because you can have hamburgers at noon.
Yeah, which we didn't get this year, did we? So we'll move on then to new business. We'll allow public comment during or prior to the vote on any action item. First item of business is the reading and adoption of the model traffic code, ordinance 20-02. This is a second reading, as I understand it, is by title only. I will turn the floor over to council.
That's correct. For ordinance number 20-02, and the title is an ordinance for the regulation of traffic by the county of Custer, adopting by reference the 2020 edition of the model traffic code, repealing all ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing penalties for violations thereof. The first reading was done in full on May 20. This is the second reading, and it only needs to be read by reference to the title, which I just did. So the procedure now, since it was approved, is for you to consider whether you want to officially adopt this as an ordinance. If you do, then I prepared some other things that need to happen because we have to send a copy of this to the Colorado Department of Transportation for their official approval, only as to state highways that are affected by this. And then there's a certification that you as commissioners will also need to sign in addition to signing the ordinance, which will be attached to the copies, the 3 copies that Kelly is required to keep in her office, and another copy that should be attached, another copy of this certification that should be attached to the one that the court has. So that's all I have. If you're prepared to vote on this, then that's where we're at now.
Okay. Yeah, I'll get to you in just a second, sir. Section 10, effective date 30 days after it's been published following the second reading and adoption by the Board of County Commissioners. This is a sentence that I wanted to bring up. No regulations pertaining to state highways shall become effective until approval has been obtained from the Colorado Department of Transportation. So that's the only language in there that really pertains to state highways, and that's what you were referring to.
That's correct.
Yes. Commissioner Cannon, or Prince, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to say I move that we adopt ordinance 20-2 and adhere to the requirements of the state CDOT.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded to adopt ordinance 20-02 as titled. I'll read the title again because that's all we're doing today is just the title. An ordinance for the regulation of traffic by, sir, it says by the Custer County on mine. That was changed, correct? By the county of Custer County. That's right. Okay. Adopting by reference the 2020 edition of the Model Traffic Code, repealing all ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing penalties for violations thereof. Further discussion? I'm just going to make that change on mine real quick. Give me just a second. Hearing no discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of adopting ordinance 20-02, say aye. Commissioner Kenda?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Aye.
Commissioner Flower votes aye. Motion carries. Ordinance 20-2 has been adopted. Do we have a hard copy to sign? Yes, we do.
Kelly?
Thank you, Clint.
They also need to sign that.
Okay. And then a copy of this goes on
The
each
copy
of
that's,
the,
yeah, but that has to go up to the state because we have to send them, and I actually have them in. Probably will want us to maybe send the ordinance, or however you want to do it. I can't even get it straight, I think. This is my cover letter that'll go up to CDOT along with a copy of the ordinance and a copy of the certification.
okay.
So,
And since the ordinance is in that big, I can't use this envelope. Or the ordinance, not the.
Did we have someone else join that wants to introduce
you don't have to
themselves?
send the code, it's
Okay.
just this,
Okay.
2-page ordinance.
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on. Next item of business, consideration of the HVAC rooftop unit. We did get a bid from a contractor, it was the only bid we received. I believe I sent that, forwarded that bid on to you gentlemen. The bid was for $10,578.34. What's the group's pleasure?
I move we accept that and make it happen.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded to accept the $10,578.34 bid from Michael Thiem. Discussion?
Question?
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Is that going to come out of repairs and maintenance budget?
I'll check either that buildings or repairs and maintenance, one of the two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
I'll check with Donna to make sure.
Did
Good
Bill make
question.
that, did you make that motion?
Further discussion? I would just say, obviously, that LG unit up there is just about ready to go. So I think,
Absolutely time.
I think we have to do that, and it will, the bid calls for moving the mixing boxes down into the attic somewhere near the door of the clerk's office and reroute all the plumbing and then re-insulate and cover the stuff that's on, that will be left on the roof. There'll still be a unit up there.
Why are they moving the airflow?
Well, the manufacturer says that cannot be placed on the roof, the
Really?
mixing boxes,
Really?
yeah.
It's gonna be
The
noisy.
weather just screws it all up, and that's why one of the
That's
reasons
probably why
it's
it
not working
failed.
very well
Yes.
right now, yeah.
Mr. Sam told me he thought it probably should never have been done that way in the
Right.
first place.
Yeah, and I've got the manufacturer's specs on that. I've got that document, clearly says that those mixing boxes are not to be mounted in an outdoor environment, so.
Good.
Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of accepting Michael Thiem's bid for the rooftop units, say aye. I've been doing roll call, but it's not necessary now that we're all here. so-
Sometimes it helps.
Right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Motion opposed, nay. Motion carries. That bid has been accepted, and I will notify Mr. Thiem about that.
Can you send me a copy of that bid too, please?
Yes, 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 yes. Next item of business is consideration of scraping rental for the landfill. We did receive a bid from a local contractor. I had spoken with the manager of the landfill, former manager of the landfill. There was some discussion about really the maintenance and repairs of a piece of equipment if we lease it from a private individual versus leasing it from a company. Mr. Lockhart indicated clearly that if we were to rent a piece of equipment from, let's say, CAT or Four Rivers, all of that would be covered regardless, and if we rent it from a private individual, it would not be. So therefore, I'm going to move that we authorize landfill to move forward with leasing a scraper. I hate to say CAT or Four Rivers, but I believe it's CAT.
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to authorize landfill manager to lease a scraper from a vendor out of Pueblo. How's that? Discussion.
I got a quick one.
Okay.
Cost difference. Because maintenance, a couple grease serves, not too
Right.
bad if that's all it is, unless there's some, like a generator breaks down and then you gotta repair it. But I don't know if that would be covered or whether we could even write an agreement that would say major items that would fail, we could not be responsible.
Yeah.
Something to consider if it's a big enough difference.
Well, the language in the bid that we got from an individual locally said that acceptance of this estimate implies an understanding that it will be accompanied by a standard equipment lease contract that holds the county responsible for the cost of repairs needed as a result of improper operation or adverse conditions. Repair of ordinary unpredictable breakdowns would be the responsibility of this particular company. The machine is currently available. 1 month is equivalent to 28 days, consisting of no more than 160 cumulative hours of use. So the issue really is not necessarily improper operation, it's the adverse conditions. We know we're going to get into a rock layer. It's happened throughout that entire trench.
What was the price?
$23,060. So that was a concern that if we leased a machine from a vendor, then they would cover that regardless. That's part of the deal. There would be no question. Doesn't matter what happens to the machine, they would come up and take care of it.
And what was it? What's that estimate? roughly
20,000.
26 is, no, 20 for the vendor.
Yes. We don't have a hard figure yet because we haven't.
Tom, may I?
Go ahead, sir.
The private company up here, individual who was talking about running that, I don't know, I can't believe if he checked with his insurance, I'll bet they would not allow him to lease it out. It might affect his own insurance, so I don't know if that was ever considered or not.
Yeah, I don't either. I didn't have that conversation with him. I just took him at his word of the bid that he submitted. So, yes, sir, Commissioner Prince.
I concur with Commissioner Kanda that it's not a risk I think we ought to take because we just don't know what we're going to find and what we may uncover. Even if it's a little more expensive to rent one where we don't have that liability, I'm much more in favor of going with someone who alleviates us from that. So I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a million things could go wrong on a scraper if we get into that rock layer, which, you know, they're very convinced that we will. If we blow a chain off of that feeder,
Price could double.
we'd be looking at $10,000 real easy for those kind of repairs. So,
Doesn't make sense.
yeah, I just felt like, you know, when we first looked into this, that we needed to do our due diligence and see if we could support a local business, do it locally. I agree the money is the same, it's the risk management that I'm concerned about. So, further discussion?
I would just like to mention, I did speak to Rusty Christensen about this, and he's all on board to work with Mr. Lockhart once we have the equipment in place. So I'm feeling very good. And Tom, I just want to tell you, I really appreciate, I was ready to accept one of the bids originally at almost 3 times this amount. This was a very good idea, and I appreciate that.
Thank you, thank you. Further discussion? Public comment?
Restate the motion.
Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote on authorizing the landfill manager to contract with a vendor out of Pueblo for the rental of a scraper. Right now it's scheduled July 6th. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. I will reach out to Mr. Lockhart and let him know.
Just point of order, sir. If 3 people say aye and there's only 3 voting, do you even need to ask?
That's why I keep
I'm just
getting asked
curious.
for a nay. Technically you do.
Okay.
I may have misunderstood, or maybe both of you voted at the same time, and I thought only one of you voted. I mean, there's other things that happen, so.
That's fine. I was just curious.
Yeah, it is a little awkward when there's 3 of us sitting right
And it's
next
just us, so we can
Yeah.
accept
Yeah.
changes.
to- That's right, so, it's just those
Real
kids.
time.
Okay, we'll move on, thank you. Next item of business, let me get back to our agenda here. Consideration of the housing rehabilitation documents. These were provided by the Upper Arkansas Council of Government. Pull those docs up, there were numerous documents.
It's not retaliation, right?
That's right, that's not retaliation, it's rehabilitation, yeah. Let's see here. Some of these were for historical reference. I'm going to go through these individually because some of them needed signatures and to be filled in. So attachment R was the excessive force sample resolution. And then attachment A, the applicant's statement of assurances and certifications, that would need a signature as well. I'll go on, I'm just making a note here. And then attachment Q was the community development plan for the community block grant. And that also needs a signature. This is fairly much standard stuff. We went through all these, I believe, last year with
We did.
COG, yeah, who now has a new slate of employees, as I'm sure you guys are aware of.
Just FYI, if I may, the Upper Arkansas Area Council of Governments is having a quarterly meeting. They move it around from the different areas. The one on for a week from Thursday is here in Custer County. It's going to be at Tony's Pizza.
Okay, and the date on that exactly, so 18th or the
I pulled it up to tell you.
25th, a week from today?
No, sir.
A week from
It is a
tomorrow.
week from today. It's the 24th.
Oh, 24th.
10 a.m. at Tony's Pizza.
Oh, okay. I will be in a board meeting, so I'll have to miss that. I would have gone otherwise, because I think it's nice.
What
to
day
have
of the
some
week is it?
representatives.
It's the 24th. I've been the county rep on that, and I'll certainly be attending, but you are certainly welcome to attend.
So it's on a Wednesday,
Yes, sir.
okay.
Yeah, it's your gig.
So attachment D would also require a signature. Attachment I
Yes.
is the intergovernmental agreement for the community block grant. So we need to sign that as well. And attachment P, date and a signature on that.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll move that we approve the housing rehabilitation documents as presented this morning and sign the attachments as required to adopt these.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded to adopt approve the attachments and the entire process of sending in the applications for the housing rehabilitation program.
So the originals you can sign later, right?
Yeah, we're
Or some-
signing
sign
today.
them now.
Yeah, that's correct, because there's quite a few of them, and all of them asked for the chief elected
Right.
official, so. The other thing I wanted to bring up in that during discussion here is there was one other document, and it was the local government commitment letter. And I'll just read it quickly. Custer County appreciates the services provided to low to moderate income families through the housing rehab program. We also value the presentation of our housing stock through the upgrading of substandard units. To demonstrate our support of the efforts to preserve housing, we agreed to do the following, and then there's a list of some things that we could opt into accept in an effort to support them, such as reduce the building permit fees by $100 per unit, waive building permit fees for units rehabbed, reduce water and sewer taps. I don't believe we have the authority to do that. Waive water and sewer taps. Again, I don't think that's under our purview. Commit $100 cash per unit rehabbed within this jurisdiction, or contribute X number of dollars to the rehab program for the 2020-2021 budget or others. So I don't know if we want to get into that. It's not part of the documentation. If it's something that we wanted to do, we could move forward with that. So I'm going to probably suggest we hold off on making those decisions and let's send the documentation, and then if they request that, I think we could consider it later.
I agree. I'd like, if we ever decide to do it, I'd like to do it on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we have to understand why that's necessary.
Exactly. Rather than a blanket, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, now they're asking us obviously to kind of help them out and make it a little easier, a little cheaper to do that. We have no idea. I mean, there could be 1 unit, there could be 30 units.
That's
We
why
don't
I'd
have
like
any
to know it
idea.
on a case-by-case basis.
Further discussion? Public comment? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the Upper Arkansas Council of Governments rehabilitation program, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. I will ask Kara to provide hard copies of that, and then I'll sign the appropriate ones, and we'll send them back to them.
Could do during budget time is account for something maybe
Yeah.
that we could use.
Yeah, we could earmark a certain amount of dollars or whatever.
Yeah,
We don't have to use it.
I agree, but I'd like to know what the number
That's
is
right.
before I just
Just
blanketly
have a plot.
approve some
Right.
huge, potentially could be a large number. Personally, I really like the idea of assisting, but there's a limit to what. I mean, I gotta know what it is before I approve it.
Yeah, good point. Okay, we'll move on to the next item. Discussion of the West Custer County Hospital District proposed survey to East Custer County residents. Obviously, we have scheduled an executive session today for some discussion on strategy and planning for the ambulance coverage down there, but I put that on the agenda so that we would have an opportunity to at least talk about the survey itself.
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that we postpone this item until either after the executive session or to another BOCC meeting to talk about in the executive session whether this is an appropriate thing for us to be involved in.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I think it's something, I don't know if this is, I know we discussed this in having a survey, and I know they wanted to do it, but I think we have a little time to work at, but we don't, I think we wanted to try to get something on this ballot this year, right?
Right, and I think our executive session will have discussion that's germane to this, so I'm a little concerned about making any kind of even a discussion at this point. I don't mind suspending the BOCC, having our executive session, and come back to this item if that's appropriate, Mr. Chairman, but I'm just not quite ready to do it at this moment.
Okay. Well, certainly I didn't put anything about consideration and a vote on this matter. Just thought it would give us an opportunity to discuss. Now, if you want to introduce a motion to that effect, sir, you're welcome to do that. I just thought it would give us an opportunity to have a discussion about the survey itself. That's all this was for.
I pointed out to Tom last week that their cover letter was they wanted a response from the Board of County Commissioners by June 9, and they were planning to send this survey out by mail on June 11. And I don't know whether the hospital district board went ahead and did that or not.
And that's why I put it on there for discussion. I don't want to steamroll the opportunity for Commissioner Prince to make a motion to postpone if that's what he wants to do, but it was just for discussion. So,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I move that we move this agenda item to after the executive session. We'll reconvene the BOCC to discuss it.
I'll second.
been moved and seconded to postpone this item of discussion until after the executive session. Further discussion? Yeah, I think that's reasonable, and typically we would not be able to just change the agenda, but you can certainly postpone it to a later time in this meeting, and we'd be within the rules. So, further discussion on postponement? This is not voting on an action item. I will not allow public comment. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. We will postpone until after the executive session, and I would ask that you all help me remember to bring that back up so we don't forget it.
You bet.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is discussion of the 2020 and 2021 revenues, expenditures, and budgets. I included this because I just think we need to be a little proactive given the impacts or the potential impacts of the coronavirus on our budgeting process. I did speak with Donna Hobby. She has estimated that we will probably take a 15% reduction in our revenues for this calendar year. I did talk with Virginia in the Treasurer's office, and she reported that we have currently, year-to-date, compared to last year, a sales tax increase of $142,000. So I thought, wow, that's very surprising. I said, what do you attribute that to? And didn't even hesitate. That office believes that was due to an increased amount of local shopping when people did not want to drive off the hill during the coronavirus.
Are we having a discussion right now on it?
So,
I-
yeah, it's
I can
discussion.
I can add to that.
That's what it is. This is a discussion item only.
I had a talk with Paul Winkie on this and other things when we got into this. The town has had an increase in revenue this year by 12% or more, I think it was, is what he said. It's up. Also, his store is booming, and he contributes that to that point, as well as buildings going on up here. Because of maybe the coronavirus putting people wanting to be further away from the city, basically.
Yeah.
And the boom has helped us a little bit. So it's kind of hard to say what our real tax is going to be. However, I worry more about the following year. You know, if our businesses don't come back strong, like they have, and building goes down, then we could be in trouble.
Bill, your point's well taken. There's one other factor that's going to come into play on July 1st, where both towns, the sales tax increase goes up 1%, which,
Only one town July 1st, the other one's January 1st.
okay, my mistake. Thank you for correcting me.
Silver Cliffs.
January.
Silver Cliff is January?
Silver Cliffs.
Okay, thank you. I was unaware of that. But at any rate, sales tax is going to increase, which may have people seeking lower tax rates outside of Custer County. So I think your point's well taken that this may be short-lived because of the coronavirus. So are you recommending we just shut the borders down, don't let anybody out to buy things? That was
Yeah,
a
let's
joke.
just keep
That was
here.
a joke.
Keep here.
I was kidding.
Okay, one other thing that comes to mind too on this. We stand to lose, let's see, from a coronavirus point of view. I gotta rethink that. You interrupted my thought with other good thoughts, Jay.
Sorry about that.
I think we could claim some of this for some of the money reimbursement, because there's things that we're going to have to do differently because of the coronavirus.
Agree completely.
So if our budgets, and I don't think we can claim the budget loss, but you can claim the fact that you're not going to have the revenue to make it up. For example, what are we going to do with our Justice Center? We're faced with a decision that says you will do it or we'll make you do it, and so we've got to raise money to do that. That to me is a coronavirus issue, because we are looking at some possible help with a mill levy or a tax of some kind, some bond or something in order to finance it, as well as from a fiber program point of view. You know, if grants need matching funds, the way you can match it as well, we got to go through that discussion with the guy we got hired. But if we can't get the revenue from taxes later, it seems to me that's an impact, because people can't afford it, don't want to do it because of the impacts they've had due to coronavirus.
Go ahead, sir.
Bill, I absolutely agree with you. I would propose, once we get the intergovernmental agreement between the two towns and the county, to discuss the money that we're getting from DOLA or through DOLA. That certainly should be a discussion item on what we feel qualifies for that reimbursement and what doesn't. So I think your point's really well taken. I'm just thinking it might be slightly premature.
No, it's just a point.
No, it's a good point.
Yeah, I think we need to remind everybody that will be asked to submit their budgets for next year, that they keep in mind there's a good chance we're going to have some kind of a reduction in revenues. Who knows? As you say, it's probably more impactful next year than this year. But the other thing I thought that comes into play here, and again, we don't know that, but two of the revenue streams that I do believe that are going to be severely impacted will be our HUTF funds and our PILT funds.
Absolutely.
We've still PILT scheduled to give us the dollar amount for the year before the end of June. So in the next 10 days, we should be hearing from PILT. about that money. I just suspect it's gonna be less. And
Yeah, it probably will be. That's another, but the parks can help solve that because if we get people driving up here to the mountains, that'll help, but who knows?
Right, and I think that potentially could be part of the DOLA pass-through grant. You know, we have lost X amount of dollars from Pilton. That's a direct result of Corona, and therefore that could be potentially reimbursed to us. But that's only for this year. We don't know what's going to happen in 2021, and we don't know if this virus is going to hang around or this thing's going to go away. I mean, you know, the whole world right now is just a big question mark. So we have to plan for, you know, what we think is realistic and move forward and hope for the best.
Yeah, I was just gonna look real quick on the general fund estimates for revenues. I may not be able to find it real quick, so if I can't, then we'll move on, but yeah, so our budget for PILT revenue for 2020 was $470,000. So if we take a 15% hit on that, you know, we're looking at 50 grand, 55,000. So again, we'll get those numbers here within the next 2 weeks. So
Even our intergovernmental monies are gonna be down, agreement monies.
yeah.
Good to have.
Okay, we'll move on then. Discussion of the Kids Council / County MOU. Let me pull that document real quick. Give me just a second here. I thought I had that in my board packet, I don't seem to, so I'm trying to pull it up out of the file.
Do you want me to, I have it right here, would you like
Do
me
you?
to email it to you?
Yeah, let me look.
Yeah, I thought it was in there too, but
I
it
did
does
too.
not look like it's in there.
Yeah, if you don't mind, if you would do that, I would appreciate it.
Why don't you make a hard copy of it?
I did, I just printed it out, we'll bring it right over. Thank you.
Yeah, my apologies, I thought it was in my, I had dropped it into the board packet for today's meeting, but I don't see it.
All I heard is they got a new grant.
They did, yeah, 25,000.
Yeah, it's
Double their
total
limit.
50 grand they've received, and I just have to tell you, that's fantastic. They're really on the ball over there.
She's expended some of that money. I saw the vouchers come through.
Right. I received it. Kara, I received it, thank you.
You did, okay.
If I could download it, that would be great.
Got an email from Vernon Roth this morning while we're waiting on those documents. Vernon indicated that Brian Lockhart's on the phone from landfill. Brian, are you on the phone? That was at
Probably gave up
9:37.
after he heard
Yeah.
the scrapers.
Yeah.
Cool.
You want a hard copy
Thank
of
you,
it?
man, appreciate it.
Welcome.
I'm sorry,
Do you like one? There you go. Do you need one, Kelly?
I'm gonna take a copy of the signed one.
Okay.
So, we had this document to look at earlier. It's just an MOU between us and the Kids Council that primarily says we're serving as the
Fiscal agent.
fiscal agent. Thank you, sir, appreciate it. So, I had a copy of the one we signed last year and a copy of this one. I just cannot lay my hand on it this morning. So I would move that we approve the MOU as presented by the Kids Council.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded to approve the memorandum of understanding between Custer County and the Custer County Kids Council. Further discussion? Here, public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of approving the MOU with Kids Council, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. That has been approved. Today is the 17th. You go, ma'am.
Thank you.
Are there any additional items to come before the group?
None from me.
No, sir.
Tom, I'm sorry, I just wanted to mention that I got a phone message that came in from an attorney in Denver who wants to talk to me about the Three Peaks SUP, so I'll call him back afterwards.
Okay, thank you. So I would move that we recess the Board of County Commissioners meeting and convene an executive session.
I'll second it.
We're moving to second to take a recess and convene an executive session during the recess for the purpose of strategy and planning for ambulance coverage for East Custer County and discussion pertaining to a personnel matter. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We stand in recess. And Custer County Board of County Commissioners meeting. It is June 17th, 2020, and the time is 11:08. Sorry. The executive session has concluded. The participants in the executive session were Administrative Assistant Kara Evans, County Attorney Clint Smith, Clerk to the Board Kelly Camper, Commissioners Kanda, Flower, and Prince. For the record, if any person who has participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I would ask that you state your concerns for the record. Hearing none, I would ask the attorney for a statement.
As the county attorney, I'll certify that the entire executive session was for the purpose of giving legal advice. The personnel matter that was in the executive session was very brief, and it was strictly legal advice. There was no action taken whatsoever on that. And then the other issue, discussing planning and strategy regarding the ambulance service for Eastern Custer County, there was legal advice throughout that conversation, so that was not recorded either. And the county commissioner stayed on topic the entire time we were in executive session.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Hearing no statements of concern about the executive session, we will move on to the next agenda item. There was a motion to postpone the discussion of the West Custer County Hospital District proposed survey to East Custer County until after the executive session. Floor is open for discussion pertaining to that agenda. Go ahead, Commissioner Prince.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think there are some inaccuracies in the survey. For example, I believe the survey said that the cost of legal service, if the decision was made to have a separate ambulance district. The cost of legal services would be paid by the county. I don't believe we voted on that or agreed to that, so I think that was inaccurate. So this is a discussion, so I'm just feeling that maybe a letter to the ambulance service hospital district stating that inaccuracy needs to be corrected.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought the survey was a little misleading and certainly kind of ambiguous, and I think there was some statements in there that were misrepresented on behalf of the county commissioners.
But if I can make one other comment before we move on, I just want to reiterate that ambulance service is being, the eastern portion of the county, including Wetmore, is currently being serviced by ambulance service. No one has recommended abandoning that. The commissioners will not stand for that, will not allow it to occur. And we feel compelled that all citizens of Custer County are entitled to ambulance service. We're just trying to work through the appropriate way to handle it for a portion of the county that is currently not paying for the service, even though they're receiving the service at this point.
Yeah, this is Bill. I agree, and one thing we want to also mention is the hospital district also said ambulance service is going to continue until it's resolved, so I want to reassure all the citizens that they're still covered. And the survey, although it is needed, maybe we need to have a discussion with the hospital district on what to do next, either redo it or get the right information so we make good decisions.
I agree with that, Bill, and I think in deference to the ambulance service, they are providing the service. They're not being enumerated for it, and that's a concern, and we need to come out with a plan that makes it fair for all the citizens of Custer County. But it's so important, as you just said, Bill, they are getting service. They will continue to get service. No one has said we're cutting it off. That discussion took place at the very, very beginning of this. The commissioners jumped in, and the ambulance corps immediately agreed that they do not want to stop ambulance service. So it's just very important for me to know that nobody in this county does not have ambulance service, regardless of whether you are paying for it or not. At this point, we're just trying to work out what's equitable for all taxpayers.
Okay. On a side note real quick, Kara, I sent you a copy of the Corona Relief Fund letter. Christy Dunn just sent me an email, said she thought it looked fine, so I'm going to distribute that this afternoon if that's all right.
Excellent.
I think we only need one signature from the commissioners. I'll sign that, take it up to Silver Cliff, and then ask them to take it to West Cliff. Yeah. And then we'll get it back and get that baby uploaded to the portals.
Sounds great. Thanks for doing that.
My understanding is that there is for lack of a better term, a town hall meeting in Wetmore tonight concerning the ambulance. I volunteered to go down and attend that meeting and offer any facts or documents that I'm able to do that. So I will represent us there.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I would just like to say I'm the commissioner for that district. However, since there's an election going on, I'm going to refrain from going, and I'm going to allow you to go, not because I don't care about the folks down there, because I do very much so, but I'm concerned that I don't want it to be even the slightest appearance of a political ploy by going down there. So I'm going to refrain from going just so that we can handle the ambulance district and not make this into a political agenda.
Okay. On a side note too, before we adjourn, I got an email from Meredith, this pertaining to a conversation we had yesterday about the coronavirus relief fund. She believes that the variable message signs would be an eligible expense, so she's going to look into getting some price on a couple of different babies.
Three babies.
Three babies.
She asked me about that, and she sent the language, and I'm satisfied that that would be covered. It's a reasonable expense, reasonably related to the purpose of what she's trying to do.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so I'll have a conversation with Donna about that. I mean, obviously, it's a reimbursable item. I don't think you have to come to a vote of the commissioners before we expended any money. But if we get an idea of how much it is and where that money would come from,
Just pick a pot and get reimbursed.
I'm fine with it as a reimbursable expense. I have no issue in spending it, knowing that it's coming back.
That's right.
and certainly my opinion would be that any message on that board has to be directly related to the coronavirus and not fires or other things, at least for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, it'll be allowed eventually, sure.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
So this is I'm gonna sign this document for the 3 entities on behalf of the commissioners. And then I'll take this over to,
Thanks for taking the lead on that interagency agreement.
I'll probably let them know we need this back within a week because we have to have it uploaded by the 7th of July.
ASAP.
Anything else to come before the commissioners at this time before we move on to public comment?
I have not seen.
None from me.
Okay, give me just a second here. I don't know if we have anybody has joined us after the executive session. I will open it up for public comment. Hearing none, Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Been seconded, moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, opposed, nay. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Thanks, Kelly.